Have you ever wondered what exactly makes you be on the edge of your seat while watching a horror movie? Well, in today's video we will discuss how sound and music in horror movies manipulate us to keep us frightened but wanting more. Welcome back, music lovers! Before digging into the secrets of horror movie soundtracks, we need to answer one question. Why is music so important in films and especially in horror movies? The key is to understand that music is a mood setter. It's this powerful force that helps create an atmosphere, and when it comes to horror movies, it builds tension, increases our stress level, makes us fear. Let's take a look at the example of this shower scene. If I play scary music on top, as a viewer you might think that the character is watching at her window, wondering what's lurking outside. But if I play a sensual song as the soundtrack, she might just be looking at her lover through the shower window, wondering if she should join, and then we're watching another type of movie. This example gives you a glimpse at how music can manipulate our perception of a movie scene. Let's remember that at the beginning of cinema, movies were silent, including horror movies. But this changed in the 1920s with the revival of sound in the film industry. The first horror movie to include a soundtrack was Nosferatu by director Alfred Hitchcock. Unfortunately, the soundtrack was lost, so unless a miracle happens, we will never be able to listen to it. However, the idea of creating a specific soundtrack that would match the movie came even later. Indeed, at some point in history, directors and producers realized that music could be much more than background noise, and could be a vessel to convey emotions from the characters to the audience. The release of the movie Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock and scored by Bernard Herrmann confirmed this theory and was pioneer in the development of sound design in horror movies.
You see, even in daylight, this place still looks a bit sinister. Now, it was at the top of these stairs that the second murder took place.
Music also brings emotion, and that's why watching a scary movie can be a very intense and emotional experience. Directors and music composers manipulate sound and music to trigger an emotional response in the viewer. They use music as a tool to guide our emotions, to deliver what they can't achieve with just visual. For example, the main theme of the movie Jaws prepares us for what's about to happen and intensifies as the shark gets closer to its victim. So now that we know directors and music composers use music as a tool to manipulate us and our emotions, let's take a look at some of the strategies they use. One that's very often used is dissonance. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, dissonance is a combination of sounds or musical notes that are not pleasant when heard together. In other words, we could say that dissonance is a lack of harmony that makes us feel uncomfortable. The tritone is an example of a dissonant sound. It's a distance of 3 whole notes between 2 musical notes. It sounds something like or like that, and is also known as the devil's interval. The use of an orchestra is very common to record horror movie scores, because it offers a large range of sounds and therefore a large range of emotions for the audience. The string family has a special place when it comes to scary movies, because it easily adds dynamic changes and textures to a song. String instruments can really dig into the creepiness music composers are searching for, by using higher strings like the violin to imitate the sound of a stab or a scream, for example. Horror movies are a great way for music composers to experiment. If they work with a full orchestra, they will be able to explore with lots of different instruments. But in the 80s, things changed as more and more low-budget horror movies were being made. With low budgets to work with, directors and music composers had to use this limitation to their advantage and resolved to use new and cheaper instruments to record movie scores. That's when the synthesizer, used in many 80s horror movie soundtracks, became a symbolic sound of the genre. Halloween is a great example of, as the director and music composer John Carpenter had to work on a very tight budget, and he used the synthesizer to compose an iconic soundtrack that inspired many others in the film industry. The use of the synthesizer in the Netflix series Stranger Things main theme is the perfect way to bring us back to the 80s and was probably very much intentional coming from the composers. Now, what would be a good horror movie experience without Foley sound to enhance our fear? Sound designers recreate everyday sounds or imaginary sounds that can be added to films during the post-production process. Think stabbing, ghost-like sound, heavy breathing, or the sound of Vecna's clock in Stranger Things. Basically everything to make the audience experience even more striking. If any of you have seen the movie The Omen, you know that the use of foreign language to strike fear can be devastating. And when I say foreign language, I mean a different language than the one spoken by the movie producers' main target markets. In The Omen, the chants in Latin that reminds us of Gregorian songs are truly haunting and add so much to the tension that can be felt throughout the movie. Now that we've talked so much about sound, please let's take a few seconds to acknowledge the power of silence in horror movies. Indeed, changes in dynamics like silence or a sudden loud noise really add to the dramatic effect and tension in horror movies. It gives us clues on what may happen to a character. When watching a horror movie, the music and sound strategies we mentioned before can trigger a physiological response called fight or flight. According to the Harvard Health Publishing website, a stressful situation can trigger a cascade of stress hormones that produce well-orchestrated physiological changes. This combination of reactions to stress is also known as the fight or flight response, because it evolved as a survival mechanism, enabling people and other mammals to react quickly to life-threatening situations. This physiological reaction dates back to when human beings had to hunt to survive, but when they were also easy prey for animals. Howard Hooper, a journalist at The New Scientist, told the BBC that non-linear sounds like Psycho's violin stingers mimic the sound of animals in distress. They trigger our fear of being chased by dangerous predators. Things that feel harsh and unfamiliar manipulate us emotionally. But where exactly does this fight or flight response come from? Well, horror movies stimulate a part of our brain called the amygdala, also known as the fear center, and this stimulation is increased even more with sounds and music. When sensing a threat, the amygdala sends signals to the rest of our body that something is wrong and we should be on alert or afraid. The fight or flight response is triggered. The movie Jaws is once again a great example. With the main theme, John Williams recreated this feeling of being chased, being the shark's prey, and the stress and fear that result from it. If torture is your thing, I invite you to listen to the following very interesting but spooky soundtracks.
I think that massive doses of Videodrome signal will ultimately produce and control hallucination.
For a trip to the world of sci-fi horror, please listen to the soundtrack of Videodrome, a perfect combination of orchestral music and the use of more modern instruments like the synthesizer. As the main character slowly sinks into madness, the synthesizer plays a bigger role in the soundscape. The music in Jordan Peele's Academy Award-winning movie Get Out was mostly composed by Michael Abels and Timothy Williams, and they played a big part in making this movie a success and an instant classic. The movie score is perfectly tailored to make us feel like the main character is slowly getting into a trap and is worth listening to every second. We briefly talked about The Omen earlier in the video, but for a highly disturbing experience, you must listen to the full soundtrack by Jerry Goldsmith, who actually won an Academy Award for Best Original Score in 1977. Last but not least, the soundtrack of the 2019 movie Midosmmar has many layers of musical complexity, being bright and terrifying at the same time. This soundtrack will surely bring you on an emotional rollercoaster. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any recommendations of horror movie soundtracks we should listen to, make sure to leave a comment, and consider subscribing so you know what's coming next in the music project.